Our guest speaker was ordained in religious science, originally licensed through Centers for Spiritual Living back in 2003. She spent 9 years in between here as the spiritual director, living in Raleigh, North Carolina. So she was spiritual director at Triangle Center for Spiritual Living. And then she retired, but I guess there was an offer she just couldn't refuse, because she came out of retirement and is now the spiritual director at Chill of Cape Coral. And that is actually a meditation and mindfulness center. So I am just thrilled to introduce you to Reverend Denise Schubert.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for that song. So perfect, because I'm talking possibility today. But before, by the way, how many of you knew Tom Pittman? He was the president of my board.
Oh.
Well, that was exciting. So there was this little girl, and this little girl went to her mom and said, "Mommy, where do humans come from?" And her mother says, "Well, honey, humans come from God, of course. We're made by God." She goes, "Okay." Then she went to her dad, and she said, "Dad, where did humans come from?" And her dad says, "Well, honey, we evolved from apes." And so the mother says, "Oh." She goes back to her mom and says, "Mom, you said we came from God, and Daddy said we come from apes." She goes, "Well, honey, he was just telling me about his side of the family." And I was telling you about mine. So I am here this morning. Reverend Lane's original topic was building a successful life, or something to that effect, using these principles that we teach. And I said, change it to possibility, living a possible life. Living a life that is not predictable, but possible. It's a whole different way of being. But let me start for a moment with Ernest Holmes. You know, he lived from 1887 to 1960. And keep in mind at the time in our history that he was living, because in his early 40s there was the Great Depression, in his early 50s there was World War II. And so this practical and positive philosophy, faith, and way of life emerged in our country at a time when people were really low, right? They were afraid, they were broke, they were hopeless, without hope. And he presenced for our world this idea: you are not a victim of your circumstances. We are not victims. We are powerful spirits, that we have the ability to create a life different than the life that we are living. So change your thinking, change your life came out of that time. Now, it is true that it's a little bit different now, but not a whole lot different now. What is different now is that we have cell phones and airplanes and televisions and the internet, debit cards, mobile banking, Uber, Amazon, right? So the degree of evolution that's taken place in less than 100 years is a little mind-boggling. But what we also have, we may not have a Great Depression, we may not have a world war, but what we do have is equally as disturbing to Americans, to the world, really. We have kids killing kids, right? We have terrorism. We have enormous, high rates of obesity, depression, addiction, that we live in a world in which exactly the same things appear: fear, hopelessness, lack, worry, doubt. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
So, and by the way, it's not because people don't pray for the end of war. Billions of people have prayed for the end of war. Billions of people have prayed to end hunger, to end poverty, to end abuse. But it's interesting, isn't it, that those things persist over time. So it is my belief that it's because we have to create for ourselves a space of possibility. And it is a feeling thing. It's a feeling thing. So today, as we move through in the awareness that God, whatever God is, it's such a mysterious thing. The longer I'm a minister, the longer I study, the longer I'm on my journey, I could almost say I'm an agnostic in some ways, right? Like, I don't know, but I know what God isn't. God isn't a man on a cloud hearing the prayers about poverty and saying no. Or God isn't the Wizard of Oz, the wizard behind the curtain saying, oh, answer this one, not this one. She's a good person, do it for her, but not for him. That's a ridiculous idea for me. So there's some role we play that we have got to step into more fully. I never understand why there aren't 400 people in this room. Because this idea of changing our minds and coming out of what, how many of you have read Deepak Chopra's new book, Metahuman? Oh, you must. You must. He talks about the atmosphere we live in, like a virtual reality. But I have a quote from a man by the name of Steve Zampron in a book it's called From Insights and Distinctions, Conversations That Matter. And he says, possibility is not real at its origin. It is something we create as real and then stand for as a reality. So it's a very powerful idea that, when you step into a prosperity class and you don't have a penny in your pocket, and you start studying prosperity principles, you start writing affirmations, you still don't have the money in your checkbook, right? Because what you're wanting to see happen isn't real yet. There's something about we use our power of intention, our power of declaration, our will, our ability to manage our thoughts in order to take a stand for that money being in our checkbook. And that somehow the money ends up in our checkbook. Now, the fundamental principle behind religious science and behind unity and behind new thought, everything that Wayne Dyer teaches and Bruce Lipton teaches and Deepak Chopra teaches, is that form meaning the effects, the things, the effects, the conditions in our lives are preceded by consciousness. That consciousness creates forms. So if you want a different form, you have to have a different consciousness. That's the fundamental idea. Now, it's obviously not as easy as it sounds, because it is an easy idea, but not so easy to step into. So we're going to step into it today. I want us to step into this, create for ourselves before we leave here today, a context of anything is possible for me. Anything is possible for our world. Because if we do that, that's our job, by the way. Because how many of you think we can fix the world? We can't fix the world. God can't fix the world, and we can't fix the world. But what we can fix? Ourselves. And when you step in, when you become happier, when you become healthier, emotionally, spiritually, physically, the world will become happier, healthier, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. That's our gift to the world. So Quimby, who's considered the father of New Thought, lived in the 1800s, where there weren't even any cars. He just sat in his little farmhouse in upstate New York, or I'm not sure that's right, but New England somewhere. And there was also no medicine like there is today. And he healed people of physical ailments, thousands and thousands and thousands of people, simply by having people change their mind and change their feelings about their health. He would ask them the first question, do you believe in God or do you believe in your doctor? And depending on the answer, that would be how he would treat that person. Anyway, he said, the mind is matter in solution, and matter is mind in form. Matter, this is matter, right? Before this got to be here, there had to be a thought of this being here. The Buddha said, the world arises with our thoughts. So this is not new. We're not like this little new age group out here talking positivity. That this is as old as time, this idea that somehow we are co-creating, we're in partnership with the universe. So, and I believe this story. I stepped into this teaching when I was 45. I was I like to say I was 80% miserable and 20% happy. So it was about the ratio. I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. I was about 40 pounds heavier. I was married to a cocaine addict. I had a job that I didn't really like very much, but the 401k and the salary were seductive. I didn't really have purpose or meaning. I certainly didn't have community. So when I stand up here and talk to you, I'm talking like there is no doubt in my mind that my entire world is tied to what I think about my entire world, like what I'm willing to hold as possible for myself. And I'm almost 70 and happier and healthier. Now I swapped it. Now I'm 80% happy, and not in some superficial way. I'm not talking superficial la happiness. I'm talking at peace, right? And 20% miserable. But that's really good. I'm happy with that. Wouldn't you be happy with that? Yes. 20% of the time my mind's going, no. So Ernest Holmes says in his book, this thing called You, also another wonderful little book by Ernest Holmes, good, very good if you're new to the teaching. He says, you are to believe with utmost simplicity and with complete faith that there is a pattern of your being or a real spirit of you, which is as eternal as God, as indestructible as reality, and as changeless as truth. This pattern is seeking to express through you. It is because this is true that you have these irresistible urges, the longing to live more fully, the feeling that life belongs to you. There is something within you beyond all doubt and fear, something which has never been limited by your acts or destroyed by your feelings. This is the only something that can ever make you whole. The embracing of this, I am more than this, right? We are more than our past. We are more than our history. We're more than our mothers. We're more than our money, right? We're more than this. So we have to choose. You know, we are either victims of a static, fixed world, and we're just trying to make it through, or we're not. And we're not. We are more. So Ernest Holmes says, one by one, you are going to remove the mental blocks that stand between you and your destiny. One by one, we start. Browning said you can desecrate but never lose the divine spark. So it's never too late. There's nothing too big, that we simply have to wake up. Our mandate on earth at this moment, if you're alive and you're incarnated in your body, is that we have to wake up. We have to recover from life. Deepak Chopra, in his Meta-Human book, Meta-Human, meta means beyond. So it's beyond human. So he says the goal is to be a meta-human living in a meta-reality. And by the way, in this book, he does not once talk about religion or spirituality or God. He talks about science. It is fabulous. So you're going to get a little bit of it. So part of he calls, there are many words for this. Maya is a Hindu term. In the Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz talks about the dream. Deepak referred to it as virtual reality, that literally we live in a created universe, and we think it's real. And to wake up is to awaken to its unreality. And one of my favorite quotes in this book is, you can leave virtual reality anytime you want to, and no one will even notice. That we can awaken to the dream that we live in, which we think is real. Am I making sense? Now listen, I pack things in, so you have to listen carefully. Be listening because I pack it in. So Kurt Vonnegut, actually before I read that, no, I'm going to read it first. So Kurt Vonnegut in his book Dead-Eye Dick says this: I have caught life. I have come down with life. I was a wisp of undifferentiated nothingness, and then a little people opened quite suddenly, and light and sound poured in. People started to describe me and my surroundings. Nothing they said could be appealed. They said the year was 1932, and that was that. They said my name was Rudolph Waltz, and I was a boy, and that was that. They said I was in Midland City, Ohio, and that was that. And they never shut up. Year after year after year after year, they've piled upon detail after detail after detail, and they still do. They now say the year is 1982 and that I'm 50 years old. Blah, 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 blah. And he's talking here about how we get conditioned, right? That you're a little wisp of nothingness, the sparkle in your daddy's eye, and all of a sudden you're born and your reality, your virtual reality got created for you, right? They said that you come from a family of strong people, that you live, that money is good or money is evil. They told you that everything you know, you were told and taught, totally dependent on where you were. So our realities are very personal to us. In the deepest sense, there is no ultimate reality. We keep looking for an ultimate reality because the opposite of an awakened state would be what Michael Beckwith used to call sleepwalking. That until you're awake, you're asleep. And one of the qualities of being a sleepwalker and not an awakened one, which by the way, don't get defensive. It's like everybody has this little, how many of you saw the Truman Show? Do you remember the Truman Show with Jim Carrey? So a corporation adopted Truman and put it started televising his life, which Truman thought was reality until he didn't, right? And so there was like a crack somewhere where you could say, wait, I'm in a program, and what I'm living isn't real. It's not so much unlike our lives until there's a crack somewhere where we say, wait a minute, there's another way here. Now, and then we have to see another way because the world's a madhouse right now, right? The world needs awakened people. We really must get outside of the dream we're in, because we think we're right. Whatever it is you think about a person, about how the world works, about the nature of money, the nature of love, we all, until we awaken, believe that we are right and everyone else is wrong. And there is no ultimate right. There's only what you think. There's only your reality, your virtual reality, right? Because I promise you that the moment you think, for whatever it is you think is right, I'm going to go find you people who think the opposite of you and believe themselves to be as right as you are, and before long, we'll have another world war about it, right? So this waking up experience is expressed in many ways by many different traditions. You have conditioned versus unconditioned, ego versus spirit, predictable versus possible, one of my favorites. I've now added detox, which is ordinary versus meta, right? Ordinary human versus beyond human, somehow stepping outside of what we think that means. Asleep versus awake, fear versus love, unenlightened versus enlightened. So whatever it means, the Buddha, somebody asked the Buddha, how did you become enlightened? And the Buddha said, I am not enlightened, I am merely awake. So I want to really get this idea that we want to wake up. We just want to awake out of the dream. That requires a shift in our perceptions, and only our perceptions. The rest of the world, your mom doesn't have to do anything, your husband doesn't have to do anything, your wife doesn't have to do anything. This is all for you. To say, is to wake up and not to be offended by the idea that you're not, because nobody who's not, people who are asleep don't know that they're asleep until they're not, right? And I'm going to read to you in a minute a long list of what the distinctions, so you can see for yourself. Nobody in this room, everybody in this room is awake, I know. All the others, really, I know this. I'm not talking about you. So Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity Church, says that for everyone, life should be a journey and jubilance. We should be in jubilance all the time. We should be in ecstasy. Why? Because the world is ecstatic. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's mysterious. So what this, it's not my experience that most people live in that place or experience that place, or like me, the 20% of the time, not the 80% of the time. But I'm not even so. I mean, I choose possibility living over predictability living anytime. And I would choose feeling happier 80% of the time more than 20% of the time. But I don't even think that's the driving so what. I think the driving so what is that we, especially in this room, we live in an idea that we want the world to work for our children and our grandchildren, that we want it to be a happy, healthy place. You know, I'm a lover of the African continent and every animal that lives on it. And I want to see a world where it's not okay to kill an elephant because you want its teeth. You know what I'm saying? That and awakened people don't kill things, period. They just don't. Well, I shouldn't really say that. We might kill an antelope for a meal, but we're grateful for that antelope. You know what I mean? We eat with respect. So, the characteristics of sleepwalking, and I'm talking about personality, the characteristics, like when you run into an unawakened environment, what are you walking into? Because I want you to see the distinction. So, first of all, there's a me or you, not me and you. So there's an automatic sense of separation. There's the other, right? So there's black and white, girls and boys, Irishmen and Englishmen. It's very pronounced. There's always others. And there's always judgment about the others. There's seeking approval and validation from others. Like, I'm okay if you say I am, right? I'm lovable if you say I am. This is living from the outside in mentality, which says that my happiness, my love, my money, my joy comes from out there. So if it happens out there, then I have it. If it doesn't, I don't. That leaves people in victimhood consciousness, right? Like, so there are two words sleepwalkers use a lot. One is because, and the other is if only, right? I'd be happy, but I can't because. Or I would do this, but I can't because. Or if only I had a better mom, then I'd be a happier person. All that's great. We're not negating the past, but the kind of being we are is the kind of being who creates possibility. So to be living from your past is to be a victim of those circumstances. So we want to find what was good in them, bless them, and let them be. This person feels victimized by parents, bosses, governments, and financial markets. They love conditionally. I will love you as long as your body is where I want it to be. The moment your body's somewhere else, I'm out of love, right? Or I'll love you as long as you do what I want you to do, or do what I tell you to do. Very common. We're talking about what happens in the virtual reality. Can you see? Right. Believes themselves to be right about everything, has a high tolerance for pain and suffering. I remember my grandma was very good at pain and suffering. You know anybody who's really good at pain and suffering? And I remember my sisters and I trying to help her. Right, well, Grandma, let's join a book study. No, I tried that, it doesn't work. Okay, how about a massage? No, I don't want to be touched by it. It's like, but there was no opening for possibility, right? It's like, just leave me in my pain and suffering. Also, the sign of sleepwalking also is the use of substances and situations and activities to self-medicate, right? Because the soul is always whole, perfect, and complete. And to the degree that it's suppressed or oppressed, it could be unhappy, right? And as long as we're unhappy, we keep looking for things to make us happy. So the characteristics of being awake are these. Living in the here and now, right? Like here, you're right here. The truth is, this, you know, if the world disappeared, in 6 minutes, this was our last experience, right? The past and future are irrelevant to this moment. So we want to practice here and now is in our lives. The awareness of beauty, awe, and wonder. The unconditional love and acceptance of the self and of others. Compassion for those who are still sleeping. I remember somebody asked, who Dr. Michael Beckwith is. I remember somebody asked him, Dr. Michael, what do you do? What about the murderer? What about the murderer? You know, and Michael said, well, you have to have compassion for the lack of understanding, right? For the lack of understanding of who that person is, because if they knew who they were, they wouldn't be a murderer, right? But you can't raise them up by condemning them. You have to raise them up with compassion. So awakened people are in service to a greater community. Why? Because once you're awakened, you're out of virtual reality and your life structures get stable. Your health becomes stable, your money becomes stable, your work becomes stable, and then you're going, all right, well, I don't have to mess with that stuff anymore. Now what do I do? Right? And there's this big opportunity, like, now how can I give to others? How can I, it's even deeper than that, really. How can I release from within me the inner splendor that was planted there before time began? That if you are here to give something, to do something, to raise someone. And whether it's an animal or a child or an environment, that when you are on your deathbed, you want to make sure that that thing got expressed. Awakened people are able to do that. Asleep people are too tied up in this pain and suffering of life. Violence of any kind is unthinkable. Unity consciousness, we are one, oneness and unity. Living from the inside out, that's such a big goal. You should have that as a big goal. That my joy is within and I will release it. Because what's the principle? As within, so without. You cannot find joy out there if you don't first have joy in here. So we recognize, wow, joy is in here. I think I'll start expressing it. Guess what happens? You become a magnet for more joy. Waking people live in an all needs met consciousness. Like when I was 45 and I was afraid that if I left my job and lost my 401k, I would be a bag lady drooling on the street. It sounds funny, but that's the fear. That's how it showed up in me. It's like, I can't leave this job, right? I can't leave my life. I can't leave my co-parenting husband. Who will love me then, right? But love doesn't come from out there. It comes from in here. So it's not just transformation is not change. Change is what you do in virtual reality, right? You think, how many of you have been losing the same 5 pounds on New Year's Day? Are you okay over there?
I am. Thanks for asking.
Am I riling you up? So, living in all needs met consciousness just means that if God and I are one, what is there to be afraid of? If the universe is for me and not against me, what am I to fear? Right? If everything is always conspiring for my greater good, if I'm in a co-creative relationship, then what am I worried about? Right? So there's kind of this I'll be taken care of no matter what. So Jesus said, be in the world but not of the world. Right? Be in the world but not of the world. What does that mean? Like a possibility. No, it means we have to live here, but you want to get out of what? What do you want to get out of? Virtual reality, right? You want to get out of this, when you put on these virtual reality glasses, you're oh my God, it's contagious.
We are one.
You're translated to a different experience through sound, right? Through sound, through vibration, and the whole goal of virtual reality is to have you think you really are where you are, experiencing what you're experiencing. Like they have you standing on a cliff, that your whole body is going to respond as if you really are standing on a cliff, but you're not. That's how life is until you awaken. Everything feels real, like it's really there. awaken, once you awaken, you see, oh, it's not really there, and you get more present to what is really there. And even more powerfully, you get to create a new possibility for yourself. So how do we actually get out of virtual reality? Everyone loves the how-tos. Like, how do we do it? Like, how do we go about the business of, you know, Ernest Holmes said, one by one, you're going to remove the mental blocks that stand between you and your destiny. How do we do that, one by one, and remove those mental blocks? So I'm going to give you 8 things you can do. Just let the ones land on you, like, you know, when you throw spaghetti at a wall and see what sticks. So first and foremost, in my view, is to become a possibility thinker. And I don't mean that in any shallow way. I mean that as long as you are sitting in, happiness is good for other people but not possible for me. Abundance is not possible for me. And what's the other word we put in there? Because. We add the because. Because this, you know, nobody had money in my family. Because I never did get a college education. Because, you know, whatever your because is. So you have to believe. It's because it is done unto us how? As we believe. As we believe, as we feel, as we intend, as we say yes to. So say yes to that whatever now you think is impossible for you or impossible for the world, whether it's peace or whatever it is, open a space that says it is possible, because it is possible. It's just not possible until it's possible for you. So open up possibility, practice here and nowism, so practice being in the present moment. When you find yourself obsessing about the past or worrying about the future, catch yourself. You know, we have the ability to observe our own thoughts. And our own thoughts don't become reality until we own them, until we let them move in, until we put energy around them. So bring yourself back to the present moment. However you do that, take a bath, drink some tea, right? Call a friend, get some prayer, whatever you need to do. So you want to handle regret, worry, which is always future-based, or regret or guilt about the past, or anger, right? Just handle it. Just begin to work with it in yourself so it begins to dissolve. Cultivate gratitude and wonder every day. It's just a practice, right? Gratitude journals. Stop and look at a spider web. In fact, wake up every morning with an intention. I'm going to see something that knocks my socks off today. Just practice. Go beyond the mechanical side of life, which is to see that you are the user of your brain, but not your brain. That you are a traveler in your body, but not your body. You are a thinker of the thought, but not the thoughts themselves. So begin to practice this. It's a very deep practice of observation, of observing the self. Here's the hardest one. You ready? Eradicate judgment and being right in your life. You gotta do it. You just gotta do it. And if you can't do it, turn the news off. Right? If you can't do it, don't call your mom until you can. So judgment flies in the face of your power, of our teaching, of your freedom, because judge not lest what? You be judged. Right. Love yourself. It's almost equally as powerful. Find ways to love and appreciate yourself every day. Notice where you're judging yourself harshly, right? Forgive yourself quickly. This is one of my favorite ones. Terry Cole Whitaker. Does that name mean anything to some of you? Terry Cole Whitaker is a religious science minister that was in her heyday, really, in the, I think it was the 70s. I remember my dad, he's not with us anymore, but I remember way before Science of Mind for me, I remember going to visit him one day and he said, Denise, there's this woman on TV, you would love her. She's on like at midnight. And she says, he used to tell me, and he was talking about Terry Cole Whitaker, because she used to preach at midnight on television. She was pretty and very positive, upbeat. Anyway, she wrote a book. What you think of me is none of my business. So if you are a person who, as part of your character or personality, that you are looking for people to approve of you or to like you, you have to get over it. You have to, because I promise you, if you get too happy, it's going to piss somebody off. It is. If you get too abundant, it's going to annoy your friends. So you have to give up caring. You have to give up not changing because of that, right? You've got to find a way to navigate the space of unlimited possibilities for yourself while still being unconditionally loving and kind and compassionate, right? And then, of course, there are practices that you practice here at the center: prayer, meditation, walking in nature, go hug some trees, talk to a dog, right? Do some Tai Chi, lay down and do Shavasana, like some ways of really cultivating that area of peace. So Victor Hugo said, "Nothing is as powerful as an idea whose time has come." And I believe, I personally feel pretty passionate that it's really time for us not to talk about being whole, perfect, and complete, but to being it, to actually stepping into it, to prove to yourself, to do that 80-20 flop, or it could be a 60-40 flop, right? But that in every day to becoming more of who you really are, more happy, more grounded, more generous, more authentic, more powerful. And I truly believe that if we do this, the madness in our world will stop. And at least if you do it, you'll have the joy of an 80% happy experience, and that you have played your part, right? Because we're never going to change the world about by being cranky about it or judgmental about it, ever. Ever. It's never worked. And all that, we've only been here 200,000 years, but the human condition is one of pain and suffering and war and violence and otherness. That's what it is. That's a virtual reality dome we live in, and nobody will care if you step out, right? So to awaken is a choice, not a course of therapy. It's just a choice. Choose. Just choose. I may be awake now, which of course all of you are. I may be awake now, but I choose to awaken even more. I choose it. Possibility is a position you take in your life. There is no evidence for possibility. There's no evidence that the world can live without war. But is that a reason to, it's one of my favorite words, capitulate the passion, right? But we have to be the thing. Michael Ruiz said in his book, The Four Agreements, "I want you to forget everything you have ever learned your whole life. That is the beginning of a new understanding, a new dream. That's the beginning of becoming beyond human in beyond reality." I'm almost done. Deepak talks about meta-reality as the read it. Meta-reality, beyond the already manifested world, is consciousness. And we've already established that consciousness gives rise to the physical world and to our experience. Deepak calls the meta-reality is the workshop where consciousness creates everything. It's like being in the space of conscious creation. So to participate in the molding of a future, that's where we need to be, in that space of unlimited possibility, unlimited potentiality. But it requires that we wake up. Otherwise, we're just in the virtual reality of normal living. 80 years ago, Ernest Holmes said to a sleeping world, "Change your thinking, change your life." Today, we say, awaken and step out of virtual reality and enter into the birthright of your jubilation. Let's anchor this idea in prayer together. I just invite you to turn within, to close those outer eyes that look into our world, into people, places, circumstances, and situations. And we call that real. It is a crude and temporary representation of consciousness. So as we close the outer eyes, we open our inner eyes, and we gaze into that space and place and dimension within us that is, which is the playground of creation. It's a place where everything we're seeking is to be found. The infinite presence of intelligence and wisdom joy, peace, harmony, abundance is within us. And so we gaze into that space and place and dimension, and we say yes to it. We unify with it, we connect to it, and to know that it is not only within us, but it is surrounding us, that we participate with it and each other in the co-creation of all that is. And so I simply speak into this. We're not begging and beseeching a reluctant deity to do anything for us. We are aligning ourselves with the truth of the ages. That we are aligning ourselves with the harmony and the stream of well-being that is flowing right in front of our faces. And so I simply know for each person here within the sound of my voice that we have created this context of possibility in our lives. That whatever before this moment seemed impossible, it's now possible. Do we need to know how? No, we just need to know what. And so I just join with this amazing collaboration of beings, this unique, never before, never again group of beings gathered here today, to simply say yes, to playing our part in the awakening of ourselves and the awakening of our world. And we do this with intention, we do it with will, we do it with commitment, we do it with congruence, we do it with everything we've got, knowing that it is the source of our joy, it is the source of the fulfillment of our personal and global vision, and it is the source, it is the high intention of whatever mysterious process, whatever mysterious presence has created all of this. If it had an intention, its intention is that we be jubilant. And so I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to serve today, to join with you in consciousness, and to know that truly all is well. We let this be, we let it be together by saying, and so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you.